Happy Monday. Welcome here to another edition of Husker Online Headlines. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, back from another fun, busy weekend. It's that time of year, Sip, where like if you have extended family, cousins, neighbors, friends, seemingly you have like a graduation party every hour.
Unless you just blow them off like I do.
I hope you at least send a card, which I'm guessing you
probably didn't even do that. Some of that stuff I just don't participate really. Don't really like to.
I had my cousin's party on Saturday. Then we had Veronica, our former intern who works for 1890 now. She had hers.
She graduated,
and met her family. And then we had a soccer game. Then we had my next door neighbor's graduation party. So it was a fun-filled Saturday.
A lot of work this weekend then, huh?
Oh, plenty of work still on Sunday. I had to use Saturday as a
I had to work on Saturday, obviously, which kind of took care of one graduation party. Because I couldn't work on Friday very much. So
you dug into the NBA.
Not
like you want.
Not as much of late. Not as much of late because the games haven't been quite as interesting, and the interesting games turned into blowouts. You know, we're not going to talk about the NBA. I'll just leave it at that. The interesting games turned into blowouts. Game 7 of Denver, Oklahoma City.
You just flip the channel at that point.
Yes. It's kind of disappointing.
You flip, like HBO has been doing like a run of just like Sopranos episodes all in a row.
They have.
And it's just beautiful. Like,
they have?
Yeah. Where it just runs like Soprano episodes for like 6 straight hours.
You're kidding.
Yeah. And
I need to know this.
When you're just like in a pinch and nothing's on, sports is not, you just go right to it and you're like,
There was one time it's May. We can talk about this stuff. I had a 4th of July that was just completely destroyed because there was a Sopranos marathon, and I watched it from 8 a.m. and I was still watching at 8 p.m. And I said, Lori, I got a bad headache. She goes, that's because you've been watching TV for 12 straight hours.
Sopranos, so you can just jump right into it.
You can. And then sometimes it's hard to jump out, like that 4th of July when I watched it for 12 straight hours.
They've never put The Wire on like that. They should. But anyway, let's get to the show.
The Wire for 12 straight hours would be it would be life-ching.
Yeah.
That's a good idea, by the way.
They don't. It must be too old. I mean, it's like a 25-year-old show now.
God, The Wire is 25 years old.
Late 90s, early 2000s.
I don't know, but that's about as good of writing as you'll find.
Character development.
Yeah, it's just pure writing. I mean, there's some we've talked about some bad moments of writing, but there's some incredible moments of writing.
All right, as Coach Self would say, let's talk ball. Doug. Let's get into headlines.
Doug Gottlieb, for the uninitiated.
Let's talk ball, Coach. Let's get into headline number 1. Is Urban Meyer right about the Big Ten passing the SEC? And it's been a very slow month of May. There's not a lot of meat on the bone as far as big stories in college football. We're still waiting on this House settlement, but I think most people have gotten kind of bored with waiting on this.
You think?
But Urban Meyer, leave it to him, the TV analyst, former head coach of Florida and Ohio State, among other stops, comes out and says that the Big Ten has passed the SEC. And what he was mainly talking about is the upper echelon, maybe your Michigans, Ohio States, Penn States, and Oregons. That core 4 is better than the top 4 maybe that the SEC would trot out. Now, I don't think what he meant was the overall depth of the league.
No, he didn't mean
1 through 10, 1 through 12 is better. I don't think it is. But the top of the SEC, he said, is not as good right now as the top of the Big Ten.
Well, based on recent results, it's not. I mean, the Big Ten has obviously won the last 2 national titles.
And the bowl games, too.
What got your attention was the headline. Urban Meyer believes the Big Ten has passed the SEC, which he didn't say that. I mean, that's not really accurate. In fact, he said in this podcast, a lot of podcasts.
Duly noted.
Yeah.
I think that's Pat Dooley, probably the former Florida.
I don't know who
Florida Gator beat writer. Yeah, Pat Dooley.
Yeah, is it really?
Well, it's spelled like his last name, so I'd assume that's his show.
That's probably right. He said still middle to the bottom. It's the SEC by far. So yeah, he said this is what he said, Sean. You've got 8 teams, 9 teams in the SEC that think they can go win a national title. No other conference has ever had that. He was actually being sort of conservative in that. If you go through the SEC, it's not hard to find. It's really not hard to find 10 teams that you would say, yeah, they're kind of in that mode where they could win a national title. 10. You can't even come close to doing that in the Big Ten.
I will say though, once they add a ninth conference game, it will clean up a lot of teams. It will, because it's going to add. There's going to be a lot more 6-6 and 7-5 in the SEC, and they all get that bump with one win by playing a directional school in November. That's going to be gone eventually.
I don't even know if I could argue that the top of the Big Ten is better than the SEC. I don't know that. Texas, Georgia, Alabama,
Oregon.
LSU.
Oregon was the number one team going into the playoffs. Penn State and
how'd that look for you?
Oregon? Well, they played Ohio State, who won the whole thing, and Ohio State hammered Texas.
What'd they do to Oregon?
Ohio State
hammered them.
Yeah, but it was still Oregon was a good team. Oregon beat Ohio State earlier in the year.
Pretty good. I mean,
they beat Ohio State.
Well, yeah, we're talking.
You're not pretty good if you beat Ohio State.
We're talking about interplay. I mean, I don't agree necessarily even with that the Big Ten's that much better at the top. They're probably better. But really, are you think Ohio State's that much better than Texas?
Tell me who Georgia's quarterback is.
I can't name him off the top of my head. He's got some returning experience. Who's Ohio State's quarterback? We don't know that.
Exactly. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like the top teams right now have big questions. I mean, Arch Manning, you think it's going to be really good for Texas, but we don't know that. Alabama had, a step from what their standards were, didn't have the kind of year they wanted.
No. They're down. LSU's not down. They're loaded and they could win it all. Now, when I say 10 teams in the SEC that you can name that have designs, that have like legitimate thoughts of competing in that realm, it's Texas, Georgia, Tennessee. That's 3. Alabama's 4. LSU's 5. Ole Miss is 6. Texas A&M is 7. Florida's 8. Auburn is 9. Oklahoma's 10. You can get to 10.
So you think Auburn and A&M are built to win national titles?
Auburn just won a national title not that long ago, 2010 or whatever it was. Yeah.
That's 15 years ago.
Yeah, those programs are thinking national title. I mean, you can't say that about Indiana, really. I mean, not seriously. You can go in the Big Ten. There's just too many teams in the Big Ten where you're just like, no, they're not in that world.
No, I'd Alabama, Georgia, Texas, LSU, those 4, yes. I'd put Tennessee in that camp, and Auburn, is like a 1 every 10 year type deal. Like they put it together like 1 every, and then
that's not bad.
Like South Carolina thought they should have been in the playoffs. They got smoked by Illinois.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oklahoma is a program that you think, if they get hot, they're viable.
And they lost the bowl game to Navy.
Well, I know if you're talking about recent results, I'm not talking about last year's results. I'm talking about an overall picture.
That over-under board.
Would you be surprised if Oklahoma made a run and got to 10 wins and could win it all? They're that kind of program.
When they go to a 9-game schedule, what do you think that over-under board is going to look like? Because there'll be 9 more losses, or I guess 8 more. There's 6 to 8 more losses on that board.
I don't know exactly.
I'm just saying a lot of those teams
I just know
are going to be 1 less win than what they are right now on that board, and they get away with it for now. And it's going to change the perception of that league when they get the 9th conference game and potentially even a scheduling agreement with the Big Ten, which I still will believe that when I see it, that the 2 leagues can agree on like a schedule alliance where they play each other every year.
That's far from it.
No, I think that's a Fox, ESPN, the networks are going to have to basically say, this is how much money we'd give you for these games. And if it's so much money, they're going to have to do it. But if they get the guaranteed auto bids, they will.
Well, that will be beautiful, right?
Right. And I agree. Like if you could get Georgia versus Oregon in the regular season, I mean,
or even Georgia versus Illinois in the regular season. How about Georgia versus Nebraska in the regular season?
Yeah, I always wonder, like Nebraska, who would they pair them with? I mean, I could see A&M. I mean, I think naturally A&M, Oklahoma, and Missouri.
Those would be wonderful.
And in Texas, I think you would probably give Nebraska a former Big 12 opponent right away. It wouldn't surprise me if Missouri would be there early, but Illinois, Missouri also have a history.
The thing about Urban Meyer, too, getting back to the Urban Meyer discussion, is how much is that is that he works for Fox now? I mean, he's kind of put out this kind of rhetoric, right? I wonder how much of it he wrote.
Well, how much of it is what's happened the last 2 years?
Well, it's that, but I just wonder how much of it. Well, first of all, he never. I go back to the headline. If the headline really grabs you, Urban Meyer believes the Big Ten has passed the SEC. He doesn't say that. He doesn't say. He just says that the top, the upper part. And he says, if you would have told me 10 years ago, I would have said it's not even close, even the upper part. But now that's changed because of Michigan and Ohio State. We'll see what happens this year, though.
Remember, though, Illinois beat South Carolina in a bowl game.
Mm-hmm.
Michigan, a down Michigan team without any of its first rounders, won up front big time at the line of scrimmage.
They did.
USC beat Texas A&M in a bowl game. So
that's true.
When you're doing a sword fight, good on good here, or equal on equal, the Big Ten won those games last year.
Yeah, and I mean, there's some recent results if you just want to look at it in a little microscope. But if you just pull back, there's some teams in the Big Ten that you would never expect to get to the final.
NIL, though, has given the Big Ten more of a fight, more of a chance. Because
has it given Minnesota more of a chance? Has it given Rutgers more of a chance?
So
has it given even Wisconsin more of a chance?
Well, we don't know with rev share. If those schools all have 20.5, which they're equipped to because of the revenue rights money coming in.
I suppose, but I just can't take like Maryland as a team that would ever make it to the national title. Northwestern, Wisconsin's never played for a national championship ever.
A lot of that has to do with the Rose Bowl. I mean, the Big Ten winner, the Russell Wilson team was a team that was at that level.
You can tell where I think.
No, I know you're Mr. SEC.
Yeah. I mean, SEC's better football. I mean, it just is. Top to bottom, there's nobody in their right mind that would argue that the Big Ten is better top to bottom. Nobody. Not in their right mind.
The draft data also gives the edge, but it was close this year. The SEC, this was the closest the two leagues have been in terms of draft picks in a while. And a lot of that's with the new.
Oh, Big Ten's good. It's getting better.
Yeah. And the money is going to continue to help other teams have a chance. Mm-hmm. I mean, Maryland beat Auburn in their bowl game a couple years ago. They hammered them. Mm-hmm. I mean, so we just don't get to see as many of these games either. And that's what makes it fun to debate. Like Iowa lost to Missouri, but that was Iowa without Caleb Johnson in the bowl game this year. But all right. You don't want to argue with me anymore.
Well, I was looking up the Maryland.
Before we go, you don't remember that big Maryland?
31-13.
Hugh Freeze said, I didn't even have time to prepare for this game.
Oh my God. Don't mention Hugh Freeze.
Your buddy.
Or I'll mention that moment in Detroit.
All right. Before we go to headline 2, Husker Online Headlines brought to you by Omaha Steaks. And right now, they've got the Memorial Day sale going on. And no better time to put your order in, get everything ready to go for the big Memorial Day, for the summer cookouts. 50% off site-wide already on everything. On top of that, though, we're going to give you another $35 off at checkout. You have to use the promo code HuskerOnline. So go to omahasteaks.com. Check it out. A lot of these boxes are already marked down at 50% off. Plus, now use the promo code HuskerOnline. We're going to take another $35 off your order at omahasteaks.com. And I know Steve Sipple likes barbecues. And I know
I like steak.
You like steak? The burgers are really good at Omaha Steaks. I
like burgers.
And they're easy.
They are easy. I've cooked them.
They're ready to go. Sometimes, it doesn't take a lot of work to make your own burgers, but
no,
it's nice when they're just ready to roll.
Pattied up.
And it's good. I mean, they had the filet mignon burgers, that chicken, seafood.
God, you're making me hungry. Don't do this.
Lots of great items. Again, and the smash burgers too. That's one of their new items they have.
It's kind of a fad, isn't it?
What's that?
A smash burger.
Yeah, kind of a trendy.
Trendy.
I made smash burgers this week.
Yeah, We'll talk about that off air.
All right. OmahaSteaks.com, promo code HuskerOnline. Okay, let's get into really the biggest Husker thing of the weekend by far. Nebraska softball and Jordy Bahl are 2 wins away from Oklahoma City. On the mound, Jordy Bahl goes 3-0 in the 3 games Nebraska played. As a hitter, she had 4 home runs. She was a perfect 6 for 6, I believe, on the weekend.
5 for 5.
5 for 5 with 6 walks. That's what it was. 5 for 5 with 6 walks. Was not out once. Did not get out once in any of her at-bats. Rarely does a superstar live up to or even exceed the superstar expectations. And now you're seeing why Jordy Bahl is Jordy Bahl.
Yeah, I always hesitate to get into these conversations because we get out over our skis. It's not like we've been following.
Not really. I mean, I've covered softball. I've been around Rhonda. So have you. I mean, we don't have to go over there to every game to like have an opinion about Jordy Bahl.
I'm just saying, don't get so defensive. I'm just saying, I'm just careful when we talk.
Careful about what though? Like
just getting stuff wrong.
Well, what are we getting wrong? Like
here's what I'd say about Jordy Bahl. This is the stat that blew me out of the water. She could be the first player in NCAA history to have 25 home runs and 25 wins in the circle in a season. That is
Shohei Ohtani type stuff.
Yeah. So she right now has 23 home runs, and she's 25 wins in the circle already. She's got the pitching mark. She's going to get the home run mark, probably, right, in Knoxville.
And they go down to Baton Rouge. And they don't even have to play LSU.
I know. They got a break.
I mean, well, LSU choked. I mean, LSU got beat twice by Southeast Louisiana.
Southeastern Louisiana.
Yeah.
What? Now, that's a 50-win team, so it's not total fluky.
And that was the 4 seed. Because, I mean, that was a tough regional. UConn was a dominant Big East team, Nebraska, Southeast Louisiana, and then LSU. So that was a really good group of 4 teams there. And Nebraska run ruled every game.
I know. I don't see this. What I don't want to do is say, oh, they didn't have to play LSU, so it was kind of fluky. No. That's not what I'm saying. And I hesitated even to say they caught a break.
They run ruled a team that
run
won
ruled them.
Everybody.
They dominated.
Yeah. I mean,
that's another thing about Nebraska. They have now this is what I mean by I worry about getting out over my skis. I think they have 26 run rule victories. 26 run rule victories.
I mean, when they get up on their opponents, they choke them out.
They're 42-13, and 26 of their wins are run rule.
They're dominant. Well,
South so 4 homers this weekend for Jordy Bahl. 23 on the season, which is a program record, and that beats somebody that you probably know. Remember Ali Viola?
Yes.
That's now I did this goes back to what you were shouting at me a second ago. I did cover Ali Viola.
The team I covered extensively was like Jennifer Lozama, Jenny Voss.
Remember, I think were we covering at the same time?
No, it was Todd Henricks, Liz Merrill, and myself.
I must have just missed you then.
We were on the beat back then together.
It seems like I covered Jenny Voss and maybe then got off the beat and you covered the rest.
You had Amanda Buckholz, who played basketball and softball on that team. And they made the College World Series one of the years I covered them. But yeah, they get Tennessee, and you have to like this a little bit for Nebraska because they've already played Tennessee once this year. They beat them.
Wow.
And they beat their ace head-to-head already. So now if you're
Oklahoma City.
So now if you're Nebraska, if you can win this Friday game, and then you can get a little bit, I mean, you can manage Saturday a little differently. I mean, as far as Jordy Bahl and what you want to do with her. Because, that's the one thing about this weekend, because they run ruled all 3 opponents, they didn't have to stress her and like overuse her.
Right. She only pitched, I think she pitched 12 innings. That's it. 12 innings. Allowed a run. I mean, we say these stats of Jordy Bahl, and it's almost like you're talking about a fantasy. 12 innings she pitched, allowed 1 run and 2 hits. She's a dominant force right now.
Now next year she'll be back. If they could have somebody internally or go in the portal and just get like a really good like second pitcher,
Oh God.
I mean, that's obviously
Yes.
the losses they had this year. A lot of it was when Jordy didn't pitch. And, if they could have another arm to kind of complement her, man.
You are like Liz Merrill right now. Hey, UT Tennessee's a number 7 national seed, and you're saying the first game is Friday?
Friday on ESPN2 at 6 p.m. Central.
Can you imagine, Sean? Close your eyes. Close them. Can you imagine
Can I look
if this
yet?
was at Bowling Stadium?
Oh, my gosh.
Oh my God. And see, now that'd be like, think about next year. If they make this sort of run next year, but can get a super. Bowling Stadium, I don't even know what to say about the crowd over there. Like,
they'd squeeze in like 5,000 people.
But
there.
they'd turn away 5,000, I bet.
Right.
I bet they would turn. Well, is that
or you just let in a bunch of standing room people?
Is that hyperbolic to suggest they would turn away 5,000?
All I know is back when Nebraska last hosted the Super Regional against Miami, they just let as many people in as they wanted dang near on GA, and they had to announce it at a certain crowd. But I had a friend that was tied to the baseball program back then, and they were told that there was like 14,000 people packed in. And I mean, it was unbelievable.
Those were the days.
Like the concourse, the outfield.
I remember it well. Yeah.
I mean, it was just, and it rain delayed.
That was Jabba and Alex.
Yeah.
Outscored.
And that was pre-beer sales in the stadium, but the parking lots were just wild. I mean,
it was a party.
Yeah. And they went to College World Series. They ran Miami out of here.
They did. I made the mistake of in the Journal Star picking Miami to win that series, and Jabba's dad just hammered me. I mean,
rest in peace, Harlan.
Yeah, Harlan just mercilessly.
Oh, that's That was Harlan, though. He wasn't gonna tell you what he thought always.
God, better times. That's.
But yeah, now next year, if they could get to a point to host anything,
the Nebraska softball team,
right?
Yeah,
can you imagine?
It would be wild. Jordy Bahl, that story, you're right. You nailed it. Jordy Bahl. I mean, I would ask you to close your eyes, but it's getting ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm a grown man here. You close your eyes.
Think about Jordy Bahl when she committed to Nebraska, 2 years ago.
Transferred,
committed as a transfer from Oklahoma. The fanfare was enormous. It was enormous. And I wondered back then when we were talking about, when I used to be calling her Jordine, I wondered, God, how could she possibly live up to all this? This is so much. So she not only lives up to it, she surpasses it.
Well, and to overcome kind of a rough injury in Mexico.
To start off her first year here, she tore up her knee, right?
They're playing in Mexico.
Is that right?
Supposedly the surface wasn't the best, and that might have led to the injury. I mean, it was a tough deal. And then luckily she got a red shirt out of it, though.
She got a red shirt out of it. She says it was a blessing. Now she's hitting 475, which leads the team. We're talking about someone we thought, okay, she's going to dominate on the mound. Well, she's hitting 475, which leads the team. She has 23 home runs, which leads the team. She has 66 RBI, which leads the team. She's slugging 103.1, which leads the team. She has 26 bases and balls, which is second. I mean, she has her on base percentage of .568, which leads the team. And then as a pitcher, obviously she's their best pitcher, and she is, Sean, 25-6 with a 1.50 ERA. So she's, Jordy Bahl.
Can you imagine if she was able to get back to Oklahoma City?
Oh God.
And just what that scene might be. And by the way, if it seeds out right, if Nebraska were to beat Tennessee and the other side wins, guess who their matchup would be against?
Who?
Oklahoma.
Beautiful.
I mean, it would be like Russell Crowe going back into the Coliseum in Gladiator.
And she can do it. I
and
mean,
that crowd, that crowd will be torn because obviously she's a legend for Oklahoma. But that would be an epic scene that ABC, because they air those College World Series games on, that would be great TV to see Jordy Bahl in Oklahoma City for Nebraska going against Oklahoma in a couple weeks.
ABC televises that.
They put some of on the weekend, they'll put some of the games on.
God, it's so pervasive on TV now, softball. I mean, there's 2 games going on Saturday at one time.
And a lot of it is the SEC network and the ACC network. they air a lot of games anyway. So ESPN has kind of the built-in infrastructure along with their ESPN Plus. Now, from what I saw on the schedule, I don't think any of the regional games are on regular ESPN. I think they're ESPN2 or U. So Nebraska got about as big of a stage as you could hope. They're going to be on ESPN2 in prime time on Friday.
Sean, I think we got through that pretty well.
And Abby, if those want, Abby will not be going to Knoxville. She would have gone if she had something going on. We'll cover the games here, but if they make it to Oklahoma City, Abby's going out there. Maybe you're going out there.
Yeah, she'd go right away, right?
Yeah, Abby would be out there. So
she's heading to Oklahoma City.
If they win, let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, good point.
But I give them
a great chance.
I give them like a 55% chance.
Wow.
What do you?
They're hot. Yeah, they're hot. Nebraska's got a lot of momentum. Now, I have not scouted Tennessee, so for all I know, they're hot too. I don't know.
Well, Nebraska's beat them. Yeah. So like they have a head-to-head already on them.
They have Jordy Bahl. They have
Jordy Bahl.
Yeah, they have Jordy Bahl.
All right.
But now there's others. I want to close on that. There's other players that are really good. Ava Kuzak is a great shortstop. She has 21 home runs. I'm looking right now. They have other players. They have to, Sean, that you have to have other players.
All right, before we go to headline number 3, Husker Online Headlines, brought to you by HelloFresh. And if you've never tried HelloFresh, it is a great way to eat right and try new things and eat really good things. And they make it so easy with HelloFresh. You decide how many meals each week you want. Do I want 2 meals for 2 people, 3 meals for 4 people, whatever the number is? They have the combination, and they have over 50 different weekly items you pick from, and they send you all the ingredients. So you get the meat, the produce, all the spices, all the things that you need to make these meals. And then they give you an easy to follow recipe card. Some of these can be done in 15 minutes, and some might take 30 or 40 minutes. It depends on what you pick, but it is so good. They deliver it right to your door in a cooler each week. And when you start to add up what it costs to go to the grocery store and you add up what this is, it's almost a smarter way to do it, because you're not going to waste these good meals and the ingredients they give you. And they give you exactly what you need. Where at home you might have a pantry full of stuff you're not going to use. HelloFresh gives you exactly everything you need to make these great meals. If you've never tried it, we've got a great promo here with Husker Online. We're going to give you 10 meals with your order, plus a free item for life. Just simply go to HelloFresh.com/Husker10FM. And that FM stands for free meals. That's HelloFresh.com/Husker10FM. And you'll get the 10 free meals and a free item for life with the life of your subscription. That's HelloFresh.com. The free meals are applied as a discount on your first box. It's new subscribers only, and it varies by plan. Thanks to HelloFresh for sponsoring us here on Husker Online Headlines. Okay, let's go to 3. The Big Ten introduces a confusing tournament format this week in Omaha.
Are you confused?
Well, I think common fan is confused because Nebraska is going to play set games on Tuesday and Friday, 6 o'clock.
Strange.
Every team is going to play 2 games between a 4-day period. So there's 3 games on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday.
Okay.
The winning teams of these little 3-team pods advance to Saturday semifinals, and then a Sunday title game. So the most games you can play in Omaha is 4. A year ago, Nebraska played the most you could play in Omaha, which was 6. And I think that's what the goal of this is
that's a lot of games.
To not put a team like, say, Nebraska a year ago had to play 6 games, and they won them all. They won 5 in a row after losing game 1. Then you have to go right into the regionals and get ready to play in the regionals. So this kind of protects your teams more. It still gives you an auto bid for the league, but what it does, though, is it protects your upper seeded teams. So if there's any tiebreakers of 1-1 records, like, it's very plausible to have a 3-way tie of 1-1.
1-1.
Well, there is no run differential or any, magical tie. The tiebreaker is your seed. So the higher seeded team will get rewarded for their success in the regular season. Like if Nebraska
give me a scenario,
loses to Michigan State
on Tuesday,
and then Michigan State loses to Oregon, the Oregon-Nebraska game will be meaningless.
Oh. Interesting.
at that point.
No, I think you're right. That's interesting. It's an interesting setup.
Because then you'd have a 3-way tie at 1-1. So Nebraska has to beat Michigan State on Tuesday at 6 o'clock.
Tuesday at 6 o'clock at Schwab Field in downtown Omaha. Michigan State's a 12 seed, right?
They're the lowest seeded team in the field.
Yeah, you're right. Nebraska about has to win that.
And then you're playing for something against Oregon, who right now, by the way, is a top 5 team in the nation. And so you're going to have to play your best game of the year against a nationally top 5 ranked team that's going to host.
That just swept Iowa.
Like the way it
In
sets up
Iowa.
right now, like Oregon will be a national seed in the tournament. UCLA will be a regional host probably at this point. USC will be in, maybe Washington, maybe one more team. I think the Big Ten is probably like looking at 5 teams in.
Yep. UCLA, Oregon, USC, and then
Maybe Washington.
Okay.
Maybe Michigan. Okay. Maybe Iowa.
Okay.
I mean, and Nebraska would have to.
They'd have to win 4.
Nebraska's RPI is better or as good as like Iowa and Michigan's, but their overall record is not as good because they've played the toughest schedule.
Right. So they would have to win 4.
Like Iowa on the year is deceiving.
67 RPI the last I checked. What
They're 0-6-1 in quad 1 games.
Real deceiving.
Like Iowa does not own a quad 1 win, and they really got exposed the last 3 weeks. They're 1-8-1 in the last 10 games.
Like I said, Oregon just swept Iowa in Iowa City.
Oregon State took 2 and tied a 3rd.
Oregon State.
They played a non-conference series against Iowa in Des Moines.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oregon State played a lot of Big Ten teams this year because they're not really in a conference.
Right.
They're an independent, which that's good for the RPI of the league to have a top 10 team like Oregon State kind of baked into their RPIs because Nebraska took 2 or 3 of those guys. But here's your overall standings.
Okay.
And I know we go back and forth on this, but yeah, Nebraska didn't have Mason McConaughey, an all Big Ten Friday night guy. There's potentially 3 or 4 more wins there in the conference for Nebraska if they had McConaughey. And,
I don't disagree with that.
And if they had those 3 or 4 more wins, Nebraska is more like a 19-win team. And you're probably talking about them being in the field. They have such a good strength of schedule, the Huskers do, but the dropping of these Friday games really hurt them, as well as some midweek hits. Creighton and UNO got them this year. And
yeah, I don't think we disagree, actually. I don't think we even disagree on. I was a little. There's some people are like, yeah, see, they made the Big Ten tournament. Like, come on, what are we doing here? They better make the Big Ten tournament, and you don't. All I'm saying, Sean, and I know that I can come off to be sort of caustic, but you don't celebrate making the Big Ten tournament
when they put it in Omaha.
Right. I mean, that's what I was like sort of put off by, I guess.
The fact that these West Coast teams, though, I mean, they
made a difference.
They did to this league what when Nebraska joined the Big Ten back in 2011, 2012, it would have been the 2012 baseball season. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people expected Nebraska to kind of come in and run the Big Ten in baseball.
Yeah, it hasn't happened.
And, over their 15 or now 14 years in the Big Ten.
Yeah, it just hasn't happened.
They've had a couple good teams, but
they've won the Big Ten.
But you think about what the Big Ten's been those 14 years.
Right.
Michigan made the College World Series. They almost won the title.
Mm-hmm.
You had Kyle Schwarber in Indiana. They have not been anywhere near the best brand overall. Like Indiana and Michigan have had more iconic moments in the 14 years Nebraska's been in the league. Now, Nebraska's had some good moments.
They have. They won the Big Ten.
They did.
Won the Big Ten tournament.
They've had some of, but as far as regional, success are getting to, like Erstad had that team that nearly won in Oklahoma City when they played Oklahoma State. Mm-hmm. And then Oklahoma State hit all those home runs late and ended up winning, but they were really close to advancing to a super regional. Mm-hmm. And that would have been interesting to see Erstad's team because that was a good team. They had some good pitchers.
Yeah. Will's been up and down. It hasn't, he hasn't had a bad tenure. It's just been really up and down. Right. But they are playing well now. They've won 6 of their last 7 series. You have to, that's good.
They just don't have that 1 or 2 bats that just that carry you.
Right.
Like every great Nebraska team there's always a bat or two that just kind of lifts the whole thing up. Kind of like what's happening with Nebraska softball right now. And that's what's been missing. I mean, this team has been flawed in a lot of respects, and they've been able to overcome some of that late to win.
They have. They've actually kind of played well.
Five Big Ten series in a row they've won now.
6 of their last 7. You have to tip your cap to them, and they seem to be in a good mental frame of mind. I think they'll make a pretty strong run in Omaha. Well, I mean, I think Oregon should probably be very wary of Nebraska.
You just hope, like, if they can win Tuesday, that they pack it in there Friday.
Right.
Memorial Day weekend, downtown Omaha,
Right.
6:00 game. It should be a great scene down there.
The stat of the weekend belongs to Tom Chattel of the Omaha World Herald. I did not know this. This is what he wrote. I had no idea. USC hasn't made the NCAA tournament in 10 years. How is that possible? What in the name of Rod Dedeaux is happening? Is it Dado or Dedeaux? Do you remember that? Do you remember that as the Omaha?
Dado, I think.
Remember?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Famous Dave Winfield game where they came back and beat Dave Winfield. They came in the last inning. They were down, several runs, and they came back and won the game.
Rosenblatt days, were you over there?
I wasn't around for Dado, but I do remember.
Were you not born yet? You might not have been born yet.
Well, I do remember when USC, kind of when they changed the bats in the game, but there was the championship final where the score was 28 to 21. It was ridiculous, late 90s.
Did you go over to Rosenblatt a lot?
Yeah, I worked there. My first job was at Rosenblatt Stadium when I was 15 years old.
Did you work the CWS?
Yeah, I worked the CWS.
What were you doing?
Usher.
You're kidding.
Stadium usher.
You're kidding
Yep.
me. You were a stadium usher during the CWS?
Yeah, it was one of my first
How
jobs.
do I not know this?
Yeah, my sister and I both ushered and worked the CWS.
Did you go over to Zesto?
Always.
Wow, that's a beautiful part of you that I didn't know about, Sean.
Well, a lot of South Omaha kids, we got jobs there. So a lot of kids I went to high school with, friends I knew, all worked at Rosenblatt.
Rosenblatt was incredible, but man, it was tight quarters,
It was a really hard job to get on the grounds crew. A lot of people I knew wanted to be, because you got a lot of hours.
That would be awesome. And they hired kids for the grounds crew
at the low level positions.
Yeah.
You had to know a guy to know. You had to be connected to get in. But yeah, you're on the grounds crew working for Jesse Cuevas. And I remember they gave the grounds crew, they got a lot of gear. And I was I wanted to do it just to get all the gear.
You're freaking me out right now, by the way. I remember reading Jesse Cuevas's name in the World Herald. He'd be part of their coverage sometimes,
And they propped him up, but he was a municipal parks worker. It wasn't like he was some out of town, let's bring. He just worked for the city of Omaha, and then his job was to keep the grounds of Rosenblatt.
What a job. You had to know a guy to know a guy. And I'm surprised that you didn't know a guy that knows a guy. I'm surprised.
Then what happened was when I got deeper into high school, you play high school sports, weightlifting in the mornings and basketball, and it's kind of hard. You can't miss all of that. Now, we did go to all the games. It was.
I know I'm irrationally interested in this, but how far did you live from Rosenblatt?
Well, I lived on 38th and X in Rosenblatt, so probably 2.5 miles.
A little bit.
Yeah, we would just take L Street.
Okay.
To 13th.
Okay.
And then
hang a right.
Yeah, we would always turn by Howard's Mexican Restaurant, and then there was a street on the back.
Hang a right.
And you could park along the street for free.
Yeah.
But we did have we had season tickets too. So my dad would tailgate, and
wow. Love it.
Those were the days.
Yeah, they were. They were the days.
And there weren't bars and restaurants around there. So you had to run a tailgate party.
Yeah.
Because there was nothing. It was and that's what the NCAA didn't really like. They wanted more of a corporate feel.
Oh, they got it.
And they got it.
They got it. It's like a Lexus compared to a 55 Chevy. Rosenblatt to me was like a 57 Chevy, jacked up, nice, but old. And then they kind of moved to a Lexus.
Well, what made Rosenblatt unique was you couldn't buy your way into tickets. It was your family had them, and you could just be an average, middle-class family and have the best seats in Rosenblatt because your family's had them for decades. And then you could be sitting next to Warren Buffett. It was, or Kevin Costner or whoever. And But that's what's made the series. We had Roy Williams on when I used to do the shows of 1620 at the World Series.
You had Roy Williams on.
He was watching North Carolina, and he said the College World Series was one of the last true grassroots events for NCAA, and that's what made it so great, that it didn't have a corporate feel to it. It just felt like grassroots.
I could talk about this all afternoon. Wow. Okay. First of all, you had Roy Williams on, which is really cool. He was right too. The issue, as I saw it with Rosenblatt, was the concourses were just too tiny. It was just hot. You couldn't really maneuver in there very well when it was crowded. It was just sort of, it got uncomfortable. Now of course it's big concourses, easy to maneuver.
Like 2 girls I grew up with ran all of the concessions for Rosenblatt as high school seniors. No joke, but
that's incredible.
They were so smart though. One of them was a number 1 ranked student in our class, and I mean, I don't know what she does now, but she has a big job. The other one ended up going on to run the concessions for where the Spurs play, and the Nuggets. She was our neighbor.
Really?
But they a lot of us, I mean, they advanced running the concessions at Rosenblatt
for the CW,
and they were doing it as 18-year-olds
for the CW.
Yeah, they ran the stands and the money and did everything.
Man,
different times,
better times, Sean. Better times.
I was just an usher.
That's pretty good.
Then I worked for Kugler in college.
You worked what part of okay, this is, I know I'm going out of control here, but what were you in the outfield? Where were you?
I was on all over, but I think I was on the first base line.
Wow.
All right, let's get into headline 4 before we do that.
We went a little
HuskerOnline headlines.
Sorry about that.
Brought to you by Huel Energy Drink. And if you've never tried Huel, it's everything you need in one drink. It gives you energy, protein, a lot of vitamins, fills you up, comes in lots of great flavors. It's a perfectly balanced meal while saving you time.
It's a perfectly balanced meal.
It's not a mule. It's a meal. Designed by experts to provide you all the nutrients your body needs from a meal. Huel takes the guesswork and time out of healthy eating. No prep, no cooking, and they taste great. They come in ready to go bottles of several different flavors, or they have a powder and you can make your own. And if you've never tried it, again, it has 27 vitamins and minerals packed with 35 grams of protein. We've got a great deal. We're going to give you 15% off plus a free gift from HuskerOnline. All you got to use is the promo code Husker at Huel, Huel.com. That's promo code Husker at Huel.com. You'll get 15% off and a free gift. Thanks to Huel for sponsoring us here on HuskerOnline Headlines. Okay, let's go into number 4. And we started some new summer segments to kind of tap into our 25, 30 plus years of Husker knowledge. And on Fridays, we're doing Flashback Friday. We came up with one for Monday. We're going to call this Mayhem Monday.
Are we introducing it today?
We're introducing it today, Mayhem Monday. And what we're going to talk about today are events that we covered with Nebraska that were just complete mayhem, things you weren't ready for.
Freak shows. And we can kind of, and we want to relive some of those days. And there's a lot of them.
But we today, we'll do Richie Incognito.
Oh God. What else?
The 04 Oklahoma game, the Roughnecks. There's a lot there's a lot of good mayhem stories that we can get into here.
I mean, how about when Bo banned us from practice after the injury, by the Millard North kid? What was his name?
Sean Fisher.
Remember that? That was mayhem. We got banned for 2 weeks.
I got banned.
You got banned personally one time, but we as a media corps got banned. It wasn't 2 weeks, probably about a week.
Yeah, we got a lot. So if you have a Mayhem Monday you want us to relive, put it in the comments.
Yeah.
We'll share that. But let's start our first one off. Mayhem Monday, the day quarterback Harrison Beck disappeared in early August of 2006.
It's a Saturday, right?
It was a Saturday practice, a 2-day practice.
Morning.
Back when they did 2 in a day.
We're all gathered around Bill Callahan. God bless him. It was after a morning practice.
No, he left after. It was in the afternoon when Bill told us.
Oh, I thought it was in the. So no, you're right.
Harrison went through the morning practice.
You're right. I'm sorry.
And didn't like how the reps.
He was getting reps. Joe Gans was getting too many reps. Zach Taylor was the starter, but Joe Gans was getting too. They were both getting too many reps ahead of
Harrison wanted a shot at the number 1 job.
100.
And didn't like it. And so he, after practice, was pretty upset, and he starts asking different players at lunch. I still remember this, that, hey, if you were to drive back to Florida, how would you drive to Florida from here?
No GPS.
No, because it was an era, you didn't have smartphones.
Right. So you might have smartphones, but no GPS, right?
You might have had a Trail Palm Pilot or a BlackBerry, but you didn't have you didn't have true smartphones in 06
right.
with Wi-Fi plans and data plans like we do now.
Right.
So people were kind of like, God, why the hell's Harrison at noon on a Saturday asking this? Well, after lunch, Harrison just got in his car and drove home, just left
to Florida,
just left to go to Florida. And we come back, and that was a time where we did 2-a-day interviews.
Yeah. We were over there twice a day a lot of the time.
And so we go back over there after the afternoon practice, and Bill Callahan's like,
well, wait, how did it? Okay, it's not like we didn't prepare for this, but I can't remember how it came up. Did Bill just bring it up?
He goes, and I do have one announcement. Harrison Beck is missing, and we're genuinely concerned about his whereabouts. We don't know where Harrison is.
And I said to Bill, what do you mean he's missing? Like what I said, are you concerned about him? So then it got weird. He's like, then it's weird. You got to kind of put yourself back in that spot.
He was a kid, by the way. He was 17 still.
Yeah, you got to put yourself back in that spot. And I remember thinking, what do you mean he's missing? Like you don't know where he's at? And they didn't. Like, I didn't know at that time that he was just driving back to Florida because he was pissed off about playing time. You have all kinds of things come up in your brain. Like, what do you mean he's missing? Like, how could you not know where he's at? But that was it. And then of course, you've been critical of me for this, but I called his mom, Evelyn.
And she just found out her son was missing.
She said Evelyn Beck Bothwell now somebody else must have called her, because I was reading this AP story yesterday, and it said she told media outlets that Harrison was disappointed with the amount of practice reps he received during the first 2 days of camp. So that was Zach. Zach Taylor was the quarterback and Joe Gans. Then Harrison was behind them, apparently.
Well, then a couple weeks later, Sam Keller arrived at campus, by the way.
Oh, God, that's right.
06.
Yep. Here comes Sam Keller.
God, those were fun camps.
Crazy. The Sam Keller news that was kind of mayhem in itself. Remember when that broke? That was mayhem.
He got surprisingly beat out at Arizona State and then showed up to Lincoln in an era where the transfer portal wasn't around.
No, it wasn't common back then.
He got his release, though.
And he had to sit out.
He ran scout team for a year, but he then came in. But back to Harrison. So didn't his mom, though, kind of call out Zach or some of the...
Just said, basically what I remember is she was saying that Harrison's better than them. That Harrison actually should be the star. She was she was being a mom. Now Callahan, Bill said after remember, story continues, and Bill said after Sunday's practice that he received a call from Dave Bothwell, Beck's stepfather, but he wouldn't elaborate. But Bill did say he wanted Harrison back. He wanted to come back at least so they could talk. I remember talking, and I can share this story now, like Zach Taylor's dad, Sherwood. I talked to him. Sherwood Taylor.
And former Oklahoma Sooner, but he said Harrison wanted to come back.
Really?
And then I interviewed the high school coach for Harrison Beck as well, because the comments from the mother got out so public and they were damning.
Yeah.
It was going to make it hard for Harrison to ever come back there because the respect that he lost, when his mother's comments hit the papers like that. And that's where you guys actually got mad at me back then, because I quoted that coach saying that to our website.
Yeah, I don't remember being mad at you.
Your editor, you guys accused me of putting the words in that coach's mouth, and that's what the coach said.
Oh, I understand that.
And it was a heated deal.
Oh, it was really heated. I don't remember being that heated. I didn't.
No, I think your bosses were.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Not you, but your bosses.
Yeah, I don't remember being heated at all. But I just thought it was an interesting time. I just remember it being startling when Bill Callahan said he's missing. I'm like, what now? Then your mind just goes to weird places. Like, what do you mean he's missing? How could he be missing? Well, he was missing, sort of. And back then it was a little harder because he couldn't really get a hold of his cell, Harrison, which is why he called his mom. He almost called his mom to make sure he was okay. And then his mom kind of launched into this tirade. Now you're in kind of a fix, right? Like, all right, what do you do here? You know what I mean? It was Sean. I made that call almost just to make sure everything was. Here's why you make it, if you're really wondering. Because you don't want the day to go on where you're like, well, I wonder if he's okay.
Well, when he was 17, 18 years old, driving alone.
Right. So
you don't in a bad emotional state back to Florida.
Right. What I wondered at the time, and you could criticize me for this if you want, I didn't think that my thought was, you don't want the day and the weekend to go on without really knowing what's going on. Like, okay, well, let's wait to see how this plays out. No, that's not what you do. I mean, you try to find out.
He was the number one high school quarterback in Florida.
Right. So that was my mindset. We got to find out what's going on.
Well, and that team for Nebraska was a loaded roster. I mean, they had a lot of talent on that 06 team.
Purify, right?
Yeah. Carl Nix.
Give me the
Nate
skill
Swift.
position. Was that Jackson, the running back?
Yeah, Brandon Jackson. Marlon Lucky.
Jeez.
Cody Glenn.
Wow. That's
and then you had Kenny, the guy from the JUCO. He was really good till he got hurt.
Yeah, who are we talking about?
He was a 4-star.
I know who you're talking about. Kenny Wilson.
Yeah. They had 4 backs that.
Think about that backfield, by the way. Brandon Jackson was good.
2nd round pick.
Marlon had 1,000 yards receiving.
Marlon Lucky broke the receptions in a season record.
Had 1,000 yards receiving. 1,000 yards receiving. Am I wrong? I think that's right.
In his career.
Who else did they have at receiver besides Purify? Did they have
Terrence Nunn.
France
Hardy.
Yeah. Burner.
I mean, they had a squad of guys.
Nunn and Purify were excellent.
Well, then you had Peterson and Swift.
Well,
you had Matt. You had like the last version of Matt Harrion.
Yep. 2006. They ended up going to the Big 12 championship game.
Hunter Tiller was a tight end. I remember that name.
Tiller wasn't bad.
No.
That was a good offense. You're right. That was a good offense.
Well, their offensive line was, if I remember right, you had Carl Nix, Slauson,
Murtha.
You had some guys. Chris Patrick.
Oh, God. Okay, you had Patrick, Slauson, Murtha, and Nix. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, they had a good score. I mean,
Slauson, Murtha, Nix. My God, what we were covering that was good football back then.
Well, then that same team though, on that same day Harrison left, Zach Bowman tore his ACL.
Oh, that's right.
And that
Mayhem.
That was a season-changing injury.
Did we find out on that Saturday?
Maybe on Sunday it was confirmed. But yeah, I'm pulling this up. Your offensive line was, your left tackles were Chris Patrick and Lyden Murtha. Greg Austin was your left guard. Brett Byford and Jordan Baku were your center. Mike Huff, Jacob Hickman, then Matt Slauson and Carl Nix were your right tackles.
You were a little light at center.
Yeah, Byford.
You were a little light at center.
Your receivers were Swift and Hardy, Nunn and Peterson. I don't know why Purify's not on this October 3rd depth chart, because he was like their best receiver. Yeah, he's not. Yeah, Kenny Wilson was the 4th.
He didn't move on in 05, did he? Purify?
No, he played in 07.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
He was here in 07.
Right.
But yeah, Jay Moore, Barry Turner, Barry Cryer, Ty Steinkühler, Ola Daganduro, Ndamukong Suh, Adam Carricker, and Zach Potter made up your top 8.
That's how you get to. Hey, Sean. That's how you get to a league championship game. That's the kind of roster.
Stu Bradley, Corey McEwen, Bo Rude, Steve Octavian were your linebackers.
That's how you get to a league championship game.
Now, where they were weak was in the secondary. They had Tier Green, Andrew Shanley was solid, but Grigsby was a small corner. And
5'9".
He had to guard those big 12 receivers.
5'9".
Yeah. But yeah, that was
who was the other corner?
So the other corner,
was it Lornell?
Andre Jones.
Andre Jones was good. Now, Andre Jones they brought in, he was good.
But yeah, losing Bowman was big.
Oh, God, it was huge. And I think it happened that weekend, Mayhem weekend.
Yep, it did.
that was a huge news weekend, and Bowman almost got kind of buried because of the Harrison Beck stuff.
Yeah, that was a major, because you had to then match up Courtney Grigsby against all those big receivers in the Big 12. Oklahoma State, you had like Lima Swede and Blackman, all these guys at Oklahoma State and Texas.
I remember like
every one of those teams always had like a 6'5" receiver, and you had to put Grigsby on those guys. It was a mismatch.
Hard to do.
It was really tough. That team should have won the Big 12.
Back to Harrison. I remember Harrison was the number 3 quarterback in the country by rivals, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and they took him over Mark Sanchez. I mean, I don't know if Mark Sanchez was ever going to come here, but Mark Sanchez was going to visit Nebraska.
You know what I remember too, and I remember this directly, Bill Callahan saying he was so happy. Well, no, maybe Harrison told me this, that Harrison told me that Bill was so happy when Harrison told him that he was coming to Nebraska that Bill had to pull off and gather himself. Pull off the road. He was driving. He had to pull off the road and gather himself. Harrison had a ton of talent. I mean, arm talent. He had a ton of it. And you know what? That August, I think in his first 2 practices, he was practicing well from what I've heard. Like he was throwing darts.
If I remember right, seeing a scene of him in the stadium on the 50-yard line, he was on like one knee.
Yeah.
And he threw a football, hit the crossbar.
Yeah, that's Harrison. He had tremendous arm talent.
It was a rope, but Mayhem Monday every week.
And what's next Monday?
I want to do 04 Oklahoma.
Okay.
But we won't have a show next Monday, so we might have to kind of regather. That might be 2 weeks from now, because we're not going to do a Memorial Day show. I'm not going to make you work on.
God, Mayhem Mondays are awesome.
All right. Final headline of the show, odds and ends. You had Trey Taylor at the Elite 11, was right up there in the accuracy challenge for underclassmen.
Good.
Great showing in State College.
Pennsylvania.
Yep. State College, PA. Sean Fitz, our Penn State on 3 guy, was there. Sent me videos yesterday, and he looked good. I mean, when you saw Trey, I mean, just his physical size. I mean, he's a big, lots of upside, lots of potential there. Also want to hit on women's sports. It's been a year. You think about the core 3 women's sports for Nebraska: volleyball, basketball, softball. Those are probably the top 3, right?
Hundo.
Volleyball, Final Four, probably could have won the national title. Basketball, overcome some injuries, still makes the NCAA tournament. Softball now in the supers.
Jeez, that's good.
But then you had some other, you had a couple women, on the other side. Like the bowling team got 3rd in the country.
So, Paul Klempa, shout out to Paul. Big fan of the band Boston. Love Paul.
You had Alexiana Johannesson won the NCAA indoor championship.
Say that name again.
No.
Okay.
Johansson. I'm going to say won the indoor championship. You say it.
I don't have it in front of me.
In the shot put, they had a high jumper go 5th. They had a swimmer, Gina Jorgensen, this year on the women's side. She took 6th in the NCAA meet in the 1650 freestyle. That was the best that a Husker swimmer had finished in like 25 years. I mean, since the program kind of changed when they let go of Cal Benz, they had their best swimmer there. So it's been a remarkable year for the Husker women.
Excellent. And it's still going.
In the track, track just got through Big Ten. They had a lot of good finishes in the Big Ten again. So hats off to the ladies.
Hats off to the ladies and Rhonda Revelle in her, I believe it's her 33rd year of leading the softball program.
I also want to segue to Trev Alberts. It's kind of been a rough year for him at A&M.
We'll bring up Trev.
Their softball team was the number 1 ranked overall team, got bounced in the regionals by Liberty. Their baseball team was preseason ranked number 1 after playing for the national title a year ago. Doesn't look like they're going to make the NCAA tournament with an 11-19 SEC record.
They'll have to make a deep run. The A&M will have to make a deep run in the SEC tournament to make it. Sean, they're 11-19 in the SEC. I don't know what the hell that happened to them. It's puzzling. Hey, staying on A&M, 4 preseason All-Americans on that baseball team. I don't know.
Well, then their men's basketball team lost Buzz Williams.
Lost the buzzer.
They had a really, really bad women's year, and they have one of the 10 highest paid women's coaches for women's basketball. So he's got a lot on his plate down there in College Station.
Michael Early is the A&M head baseball coach. So you're saying they went cheap, kind of?
Well, and maybe they weren't able to get a guy, but instead of going out and trying to like lure a big name to College Station and pay them big bucks, and maybe those guys all said no, they had to promote the assistant,
Michael Early.
But the thought then, and I don't disagree with this theory, is it kept all the players there. They had they had a really good team coming back.
That's fair. See, I mean, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be the guy that second guesses in hindsight, because you're right. If you keep a guy, you keep your players.
They kept enough to be preseason ranked number 1.
Right.
So it just didn't go right for him down there, though. So, yeah, full plate for Trev. And another former AD note, you got this one about Bill Moose.
Oh, Moose.
His book.
Yeah, let me
I figured you just could ad lib here. I didn't know you needed to go to the script.
Well, Sean, come on.
His book is coming out in July.
Yeah, he's got a publisher secured. The books due out at the end of July. And I think he means this year.
I'd be pretty impressed, because I've gone through books in doing the publishing process. That's a quick turn if that's the case.
Yeah, it's possible he means next July, but no, he said at the end of July. We'll see on that. That is a quick turn. This book is going to be of great interest to Nebraska fans. I'm not going to give it away because Bill would kill me some of the stuff, but there's a lot that he'll be talking about that never came out, that on coaching hires. I think you would say a lot of it will talk, some of it on. Now, he had a great run at Nebraska, and he'll talk about the great things, but he'll also talk about how he was kind of stripped of power. And
the political monster here kind of got it.
Let's just keep it at that. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. This is a political monster. It can be, So yeah, and it'll be balanced. But I will just tell you this, Sean, we're going to be writing about it. I mean, when it comes out, I would say there'll be talk shows will be talking about it. I'll be writing about it because there's stuff that's going to come out that it's pretty surprising. How about that for a tease?
A lot of good books coming out lately.
Yes.
Got mine coming out. Moose. Right. Other books.
Other books.
All right.
It's a summer of books.
Well, for Steve Sipple, I'm Sean Callahan. Thanks for joining us here to start your week for Husker Online Headlines.